Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Esaina'el heharim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz alitin lamot raglecha al yandum shomrecha Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka V'yareach balayla Adonai yishmorcha mikora Yishmor et nafshecha Adonai yishmor tzetecha Uvoecha me'ata v'ad olam. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, the maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever. And as we gather this afternoon to remember Martin Levene, we also share this selection from Psalm 27. Adonai is my light and my victory. From whom shall I feel afraid? Adonai is the stronghold of my life. From whom shall I feel terror? One thing I have sought from Adonai, how I long for it, that I may live in the house of God all the days of my life, that I may look upon the sweetness of Adonai and spend time in God's palace, that you might hide me in your sukkah shelter on an overwhelming day. Hide me in the hiding places of your tent. Raise me high upon a rock. Hear, Adonai, my voice. I am crying out. Be gracious to me and answer me. My heart has said to you, seek my face. I seek your face, Adonai. You have been my help. Do not forsake me or abandon me, my God, God of our deliverance. As I had the opportunity to speak with your family when we gathered Friday afternoon, Audrienne, you so beautifully provided the framework and the context for this moment as we gather together to honor Marty's life and the legacy that he leaves behind in our world, and to also then accompany him to his final resting place. You asked that today not be focused on mourning, but on missing, that sacred opportunity to remember the moments and the memories we each shared with Marty. And one of the gifts of being human is that we are able to use memory in a way that summons the past into the present, that allows us to share that remembered space and those remembered times with the person we love and miss once again, to feel their presence with us, lingering in those memories. And there was so much about Marty that all of us who had the privilege to know him will most certainly miss. And so we extend our deepest condolences to you, Audrienne, as you hold on to over 57 years of memories with Marty, and also to your sons, Robert, Daniel, and Howard, to their families, to Marty's sister, Michelle, and to your grandchildren, Rena, David, Avital, Max, Lindsay, Miriam, Ariella, and Maytal. Audrienne, you shared with me that Marty is being buried in the same sports jacket that he wore on your very first date, and in the tallis from his junior congregation days. Two powerful physical reminders of what was most important to Marty, his family and Judaism. And Marty was also passionate about learning and education and his work as a licensed professional engineer. He graduated proudly from Central High School in Philadelphia, the 193rd class, not with a high school diploma, I'm told, but with a Bachelor's of Arts degree and the Mayor's Scholarship. He went on to the University of Pennsylvania, where he received his Bachelor and Master of Science degrees, and then went on to work for RCA, where he worked on the Lunar Rover program, on some of the first color television cameras, on mail sorting programs for UPS, and on some of the very first UPC codes. And Marty himself has 12 patents. It would have been 13, I'm told, but after applying for one of them, he was informed that the patent was already held by someone who happened to be none other than Thomas Edison. Following his time at RCA, he went to work as a consultant for Gorka, which, if you're not aware, stood for Good Old RCA, and was started by a number of disgruntled RCA senior engineers. And for the last 33 years, Marty was a retiree, able to enjoy spending his time any way he wished. Audrienne, you shared with me that you and Marty met through a mutual friend who was trying to set you up, and your first date in 1962 was to the University of Pennsylvania's museum to see the jade exhibit. At one point in the evening, you told Marty an off-color joke and were so embarrassed that you blushed so fully while telling him, and Marty quickly fell for you in exactly that moment. And there was just something about the two of you together, like you were always meant to be. While on that first date, there was a chance of snow, you shared with me, and Marty, driving his 1957 Chrysler, of course, had his snow tires with him. He stopped at George Moody's gas station to have the tires put on, and afterwards, Moody gave Marty an ice scraper, and then handed Marty a second one with the words, "And here's one for your wife." The rest, as they say, is history. Marty invited you to an RCA dinner dance and out for New Year's that year. And Audrienne, you shared that after that, you told your parents that you were going to marry that man. And together you had a most beautiful family that has grown with children and grandchildren, and also an incredible amount of traveling, as you and Marty have taken 31 major trips, all to different locations across the United States, Canada, South America, Europe, Africa, and Australia. Together, you've collected tchotchkes from each place, which decorate a table in your home. And as your family shared, wherever you went, the two of you sought out the Jewish angle, trying to visit a synagogue, finding the Jewish quarter or Jewish connection of a specific place. And Marty loved to go places where he could learn. While others may go to New Orleans and spend time eating beignets, Marty, with his strong interest in World War II history, was at the National World War II Museum. And when I asked what Marty was like at home, in his personal life outside of his professional career as an engineer, Audrey-Ann, you smiled as you looked at me and said with all seriousness, "Oh, Marty was an engineer in his personal life too." That's why we got along so well all these years. As you and your son said, Marty was exacting, someone who strove to be a master of all subjects. While Audrey-Ann and the rest of us might Google something on our phones to find out information, Marty would often go back to the various editions of Encyclopedia Britannica at their home. He had a deep desire to understand everything. And while he liked to fix things around the house, on the occasions where a plumber or an electrician was called, Marty would hover right over their shoulder, not only to make sure they were doing what they said they were going to do, but mostly to understand what they were doing so he could explain it to someone else if asked, and so he could potentially do it himself the next time. As each of his sons described him, Marty was a gentle personality who grew up in a generation where what was important was what you did and not just what you said. Marty happened to be a fan of the Philadelphia sports teams and was very much looking forward to watching the Super Bowl. He both played and enjoyed baseball and always watched Penn State football. He was a loving and intellectual grandpop, always wanting to teach and to learn. And while he left the cooking to Audrey-Ann, the extent of his own cooking abilities limited to peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which happened to be his favorite thing to eat, there were the special occasions when the family would go out to eat and stop at a delicatessen where Marty would enjoy and somehow, I'm told, both savor and inhale a real deli corned beef sandwich. The running joke was that Marty would clean his plate and the plate of whomever was sitting next to him. And Marty was an engineer in his whole being. He'd help his sons with their Cub Scouts Pinewood Derby cars and knew all of the tricks to making them as fast as possible. And he helped create airplane costumes for his boys one Halloween with cut-up boxes to go around them and a cardboard propeller in the front. And while Marty would often come up with incredible plans, it was Audrey-Ann who would help create the processes by which the plans would go off without a hitch. As Robert, Daniel, and Howard all shared, the two of you were such a pair and were so often always together. And at McCourt Shalom, where you were nearly founding members coming in year 2 of the congregation's history, and now at Kol Ami, you were so often together. Whether it was your partnership, which allowed for Marty to serve on our ritual committee, taking on the task of assigning B'nai Mitzvah dates for 21 years' worth of students, to attending adult education courses, coming to services and Torah study, and a host of other programs and events. As your entire family shared, the synagogue was vitally important to you, and your children have all followed in your footsteps, affiliating with synagogue communities of their own. Audrey-Ann, you and Marty set the example for your family with a Judaism that was always present, infused throughout the rhythm of the week and of the year, celebrating Shabbat always with candles, wine, and challah, and showing by your own example the importance of volunteer work and community. It is truly part of the enduring and beautifully powerful legacy that Marty leaves behind. Our Jewish sages remind us to number our days so that we may grow a heart of wisdom. Since Marty's severe heart attack in November of 21, he in many ways knew he was incredibly lucky and living on borrowed time, as so many people do not even survive such a life-threatening occurrence. It's truly the missing that hurts the most, that he's not next to you when you fall asleep at night, that you've already experienced the first Shabbat when you weren't able to light Friday night candles together, that somehow the world continues to move forward even when your lives have just been changed forever. But it is in the missing where love and deep connection still abide, for grief reminds us of a love that is so much stronger and more powerful and enduring than anything that death could ever take away. We join together now in Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We'll be hearing some words of memory and remembrance from Audrienne, Robert, and Michelle. Howard?
You may wonder why Marty died on Super Bowl weekend. It is easy to understand. He was super in every way, and he bowled us over with kindness, intellect, and love. I don't think he could have selected a more appropriate weekend. Now, he's been called nice, smart, caring, kind, friendly, thoughtful, and athletic. I will begin my eulogy with few of the adjectives to describe my husband, your dad, your grandfather, your brother, your relative, and your friend. But there's one thing you might not know about us, and that is our contribution to curb climate change. We drive a 2013 Toyota Prius, and we have ordered a 2023 Toyota Prius Prime, whose battery is charged externally, and it will also run on gas if the battery's power is exhausted. Our goal was to prepare for the time when either the power grid is overloaded or fuel is not available, depending on climate change. We buy Bounty paper towels to select the appropriate size. We each had a hand towel in the powder room to dry our hands, reducing the amount of towels needed. paper saved. Our washing machine and dryer are both electric. I would wash either white or color wash, but never putting them in the dryer if it wasn't raining or snowing, but hanging them on lines in our backyard. No unmentionables were hung outside, but hung on a line in the laundry room. Electricity saved. But after 57 years of marriage, our bladders became synchronized. You could hear one of us yelling, "Don't flush." I promised him I would end my eulogy with the reminder, "Sweetheart, don't flush." Water saved. Thank you. I try to think like other people, but I'm never successful. You were terrific. All right. Thanks, Canner. Oh, of course. Okay. Our boys are here, and they used to call you hot person.
Yes, I can.
Okay, Robert, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Robert, the eldest son. My dad. You couldn't find a better lifelong friend, colleague, husband, father, grandfather, and professional engineer. I'm electrical, he was mechanical, very much so. To me, 64-bit suggests microprocessors, but in the fall, my dad bought a precision screwdriver set with 64 bits. My set has a mere 20. On a January visit, I needed a precision hex or Torx bit for a tiny set screw, and when I asked if he had one, the answer was, on top of the workbench, because of course it was. Now that he's gone, who will fix everything? Who will have the answers to everything? Who will be there for my mother like she was there for him for 60 years? Who will model for my children how a loving couple treats each other? Dilbert creator Scott Adams half-seriously wrote that an objective of engineer social interaction is to, quote, demonstrate mental superiority and mastery of all subjects, end quote. Dad did that every day to the end, from his high school years at his beloved and rigorous Central High in Philly, to college at Penn on a competitive scholarship, and to a model career at RCA. Dad won the prestigious David Sarnoff Award and earned 12 patents, such as the needle capstan. He worked on a lenticular color kinescope, a color videotape recording head, a video recorder for the nuclear submarine USS Sea Dragon's Polar Transit, and the communications relay unit for the mini color TV station on the lunar rover. Uncredited, he developed an early blood filter, so it's fitting that he was granted an unexpected 14 months of life, sustained by our prayers, the Creator's help, my capable mother's assistance, and a portable medicine pump. We'll all miss our dinner conversations with Dad on every topic, usually historical or technical, and our wide-ranging Sabbath afternoon conversations, often about the history he lived, such as the World War II home front and the Great Depression. He must have been one of the last Americans to have seen the Hindenburg fly when it ominously overflew the Jersey Shore on August 8, 1936, scattering the frightened beachgoers. Dad's encyclopedic memory is no more. Now he is a memory. We'll miss listening to music with him, from Spike Jones to Tom Lehrer to Gilbert and Sullivan, to Broadway shows on long car trips to the Jersey Shore, and vacations to interesting places, such as Rhinebeck Aerodrome and Mystic Seaport. We'll miss watching sports together. My dad was a scholar and an athlete. He played freshman football in high school, and had he grown, he might have continued the legacy of his great uncle, Tennessee Volunteers coach George Levene. We'll, of course, miss sitting beside him in synagogue. He taught by example that a Jew takes his Judaism seriously, studies it diligently, lives by its ethical lessons, and as an adult joins a synagogue and contributes his time and expertise. He instructed me that post-bar mitzvah, if I were needed to make a minyan, that is a prayer quorum in a house of mourning, that I should join it, even if this meant being late for school. It never happened, but I got the message. He lived his life with competence, responsibility, honor, humility, and love. Goodbye, Dad.
Well, I have some words about my dad, and I'm going to be brief because you've already heard such very kind words. And when you're the youngest, you get the least amount of time with your parents, but it's an amazing time, and I'll forever be grateful. So I want you to do an exercise with me. Close your eyes. I want you to imagine my dad angry, shouting, veins popping, hand clenched. You can't imagine it, neither can I, and no one else can, because it never happened. Dad touched my friend circle throughout my life. Childhood, your friend's dad, off to college, you meet your dad when he comes in for things, med school, grad school, my work in Florida. And all the messages I've been receiving on social media now as my friends check in after they hear my dad has passed have been very consistent. They all noted that he was an amazing person, a devoted husband and parent, a great, kind, wise, intelligent, and gentle man who left that impression on everyone he met, even if only briefly. But he will remain an inspiration to me, and I'll always love my dad.
There we go. As a follow-up to Howard's, everybody did love my brother. And I had no friend ever like my kid brother. He was, as far as I was concerned, my very best friend. Yes, until I met my Hal, I really did not trust any young guy completely, except my younger brother, Marty. And when he was little, he wasn't always an easy kid to babysit. He was pudgy. When he was a toddler, he was somewhat heavy, but always sweet. Because of him, I met my Hal. Some of my relatives were socially friendly with the Brills. By the way, I'm Michelle Levene Brill. For many years, and thought that they had engineered the match. Not so. Even though my mom had met my future mother-in-law at some function where they talked about their kids and she liked her, nothing happened then. And since I didn't trust anyone, and neither did Hal. Sorry, cousins and Levenes, but thank you for the love and the good intentions. Years later, when my brother Marty worked at RCA in Camden, so did
Hal, my husband. They were both mechanical engineers. That is when the wheels started turning. He called, and he arrived for a date, and lo behold, my father, also a mechanical engineer, actually welcomed him, as he never had really welcomed any of my previous dates. He very warmly. And he remembered Marty's friend Hal as a great student of his and happily greeted him. I guess in this case, I might have trusted my mother and father or even the cousins as well as my brother, but it was Marty who I will always credit for bringing me my true love. And he had so many friends, I should have understood that would happen. Everybody loved him. I loved him very much.
It is hard to sing of oneness when our world is not complete, when the ones who brought us wholeness now are gone. Yet the fullness of their life is part of what we have become, and their spirit in our memory lives on. Hamakom yinachem etchem, Hamakom yinachem etchem, Hamakom yinachem etchem, B'toch she'ar avelei Zion v'Yerushalayim. It is hard to sing of oneness when our world is not complete, when we feel as though we walk the path alone. Now with memory to guide us, give us strength to guide our way. Grant us courage to remember and to grow. Hamakom yinachem etchem, Hamakom yinachem etchem, Hamakom yinachem etchem, B'toch she'ar avelei Zion v'Yerushalayim.
In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember him. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember him. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember him. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember him. So long as we live, he too shall live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. I invite you to please rise for our memorial chant of El Malei Rachamim.
Il המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה עם קדושים וטהורים כי זוהר הרקיע מסעירים את נשמת משה לב בן חיים הלוי ופרדה גולדה שהלך לעולמו. בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים. בצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר אמן.
Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Martin Levene, who have entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence and in the shadow of your wings. Let his soul always be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. Please be seated. Interment will follow our chapel service this afternoon at Roosevelt Memorial Park. Audrienne and the Levene family will be observing Shiva at her home in Cherry Hill today following burial. Tomorrow, Monday, with a minion service at 7 p.m. and on Tuesday with a minion service at 3 p.m.
Rise once more, please. Just for a moment. Folks in this row, you'll begin to enter our